Welcome, everyone, to Amplify Your Authority podcast. I'm Marissa Shadrick. I'm an online marketing consultant and certified copywriter, and I've got an amazing treat for you today. Kelly Swanson is with us. Let me tell you a little bit about Kelly, but I'll tell you, it's only the tip of the iceberg. Kelly Swanson is an award-winning storyteller, comedian, Hall of Fame inspirational speaker, Huffington Post contributor, and cast member of the Fashion Hero television show airing on Amazon Prime. She is also the author of Who Hijacked My Fairy Tale, The Land of If Only, The Story Formula, and the Affirmation Journal for Positive Thinking. I am just so thrilled to have Kelly with us today. Welcome, Kelly.
Welcome. After all that, no wonder I'm so tired.
For sure. And that's just a little bit. I mean, you are an active lady. And as far as storytelling, whenever I think of the word storytelling, I think of you. And sometimes when I'm even writing stories, I think in my head, what would Kelly say?
That's great. It's nice when you can be known for your area of expertise. It makes me feel
Absolutely.
I've just lived in the world of story. I've been studying it for so long. I've watched it change lives. I've watched it change my own life. I'm just a huge fan and very honored to be here today and share just a little bit of what I know with your audience.
Absolutely. So, Kelly, for the sake of those that maybe don't know you, can you give us just a background how you got into storytelling? How did that all begin?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm going to try to answer it quickly. If you go all the way back to my childhood, I was a picked on kid, a bullied kid, and I always tell people that because my world was sort of toxic, if you will, I escaped into the world of make believe. And I I had imaginary friends, and in my life, maybe some of y'all did too. And that sounds weird, but now looking back, I can see exactly what I was doing. I was writing a new story to live in, and it's just as real as any story you're writing to live in. And so that was my first foray into story, was actually using it to change the way I showed up in the world. Now, fast forward, these characters in my head tumbled out onto paper and it became my art. And I fell in love with just pure storytelling, and they would delight me and tap me on the shoulders and make me laugh. And they were stories about ordinary people that would do extraordinary things. That was always the theme. And then fast forward, after college, I majored in English because I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't very career driven, if that makes sense. Just wanted to get married and have kids. But I took a writing class at a community college after I graduated. A bunch of teachers were taking it. And we had to share our stories with the class. I was kind of like, oh, I got to share it out loud. Oh, this is vulnerable. And the class was full of teachers, and they said, we like your story, but the way you tell it is even better. Would you come to our schools? And so I started going to schools, telling stories, and then quickly realized that I wasn't speaking to the children. I was speaking to the adults in the back of the room. They were resonating. They were laughing in all the right places. And then at one point, so I became a professional storyteller, and that's hard, trying to find places to book me to tell stories. And at one point, a woman came up to me and said, do you realize what your stories are doing for people? I was like, what do you mean? I thought I was just making them laugh and feel. She was like, they're empowering people. They're taking them on a journey. Your stories are so much more than you realize. You're motivating people to change and think about their lives differently. And then when I met Jeannie Robertson, who was a legend in our speaking business, she said, you need to be a speaker. And this is the world where you can tell your stories. And then quickly, you didn't know it was going to be such a long-winded question. I'm almost done. Quickly, what happened was, that was 20 years ago, people would start immediately. Other speakers would say, oh my gosh, how do you tell a story like that? What are you doing? Why are they eating out of the palm of your hand? How are you making people cry and laugh? And why is it that you're the one they called back for the conference a second time and not me? And I was like, it's the story. It's all about the story. So I began to look at stepping into other people's lives and, well, how do I help you tell your story and find your voice in a way that's authentic for you? And that path has led me to where I am today, and I'm loving every minute of it.
I bet. I bet. Story is powerful. And in copywriting, story is important. In our marketing, story is important. But people aren't always, they don't really get the connection of story. What is it about story that is so compelling and draws people in? What is it about story?
And there are so many things, Marissa, that make story valuable, and its application is so broad that it's even hard to answer it quickly. But
Hmm.
I will try. Um, it's compelling. A story is compelling and it's entertaining. They're telling us in the speaking industry, our audience has the attention span of a gnat, like 4 seconds, that their attention span is short. They're telling us that in business meetings. You got to get their attention quickly and keep it. So they tell us that we have a very short attention span when we're in our meeting. Yet when we get home, we turn on Netflix and we will watch
Yeah.
hours of a guy with a mullet and a tiger. We
Hmm.
will binge watch our shows to no end. We will stay suspended and engaged in a story much longer than we
Hmm.
will in information. So first of all, it's just engaging, entertaining, when done well, and
Hmm.
compelling. My audience doesn't check out during the story ever. It's when I
Hmm.
get to the blah, 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 blah part. It's compelling. It is, I always say, oh, I got a story. Can I explain it through a little story, if I may?
Sure. That would be wonderful.
I got an award in our speakers industry, our association, and it was a really big award. And my best friend was there, and she wanted to give me a present to commemorate the event and this time in my life. And so she hands me this little box, Marissa, and I open it up, and there's a pair of earrings in there. Now I'm all about bling and earrings and jewelry, but these were the ugliest pair of earrings I've ever seen. They were like plastic and chunky and green and blue. Now I like my chunk, but they were clip-ons. I don't even wear clip-ons. They look like something my grandmama would have worn to Bible study. And one was broken. And being the Southern woman that I am, I squealed in delight and told her how much I loved them. She busted out laughing. And she said, Swanson, I know you're not going to wear those earrings anywhere. She said, but you need to know the story behind these earrings.
Mhm.
She said, they're not expensive. She said, I paid more to ship them than I actually paid for them. So they're not real stones or anything like that. She said, yes, I know one's broken. And she said, but these earrings belong to your mentor, Jeannie Robertson, who discovered you 20 years
Oh.
ago in the speaking business and changed your life. And she said, and I know how bittersweet it is for you to stand up on that stage tonight, knowing Jeannie didn't live long enough to see you, her mentee, inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame.
Oh.
And she said, so I thought that having these earrings here would help you feel like she's with you in spirit. And she said, I know you probably won't wear them, but you can do with your creativity. She said, I know you'll do something with them that will make them extra special. Now, she was wrong about that part because I didn't need Marissa to go do something with them to make them special. In that one moment, a cheap pair of earrings I would never worn or saw no value in had become one of my most prized possessions. Not for the sum of its parts, but for the story behind it. And that is how I look at story and try to explain it to my audience and to my clients, is that you have a message. You have something you're sharing with the world, selling to the world, whatever your mode of persuasion or influence. Are you just selling me a pair of earrings? Or are
Hmm.
you wrapping it in story? Because the story is what gives it meaning. Story gives our life meaning. The stories we write about our life, stories give our product meaning.
Yeah.
Stories give your brand meaning. And when you can do that, you have much deeper influence than you did before. So, there's other ways I could say. One other thing I want to say is stories give it context.
Yes.
Um, well, back to meaning. When you sell, you don't sell me something. You sell me the transformation it brings in my own life.
Hmm.
You sell me the story of what this is going to look like if I have your service, if I have your product. But sometimes you sell something, or in your industry, you speak a language people don't speak. And I don't mean like a foreign language. I mean industry speak. Let's say you're in
Jargon.
tech
Hmm.
and you speak a whole financial planners have a token.
Hmm.
Doctors might have to explain something that their common buyer doesn't have that same um, language. Stories are a powerful tool to give context and meaning to what you're trying to explain. That could be an analogy or, a way of explaining it in a way that they can. It's like if you compared how your computer works to how
Mm-hmm.
your refrigerator works. That's what I'm talking about, is when you're able to take a story. The last thing I'll say about stories and why they matter, though I could keep talking, as you've probably guessed, is that stories allow your listener to test drive your truth. We're all trying to
Mm,
persuade somebody, and there's a difference in telling them what to do and making them want to do it.
yeah.
When you tell a story the right way, and you take me on a journey, and your listener gets to experience this truth that you're sharing, emotion and all. And that is much, they test drive your truth. Just take my word for it. I can't explain everything about how it happens on this short of time. But that is a powerful thing you have to do. Yet so many of us in our world of noise and clutter and distractions and 4-second attention spans, I do it sometimes myself. We keep reverting back to just give them the information, give them the data. I write an article and nobody reads it. I share a funny story about what happened to me on the subway and it gets, thousands of views because people tap into a story more than data and information.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a long
I
one, wasn't it?
I would think that it would also help in building the trust, right? And the credibility
Oh,
as people
oh,
are so
that's a
human.
good one. That's a good one. I can't believe I didn't think to say that too. That is a good one because when we sell, the cardinal rule of sales is that people buy from people they like, trust, believe, and feel like they
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
And those four, like, trust, believe, know, your information can't do that. Your
Right.
features and benefit, your data, it cannot do that. So how do we, in a short amount of time, allow someone to know us or to create an opinion about us? How do we create rapport? Like a salesperson, when they go into the room, looks for something that they have in common. It's the idea that you need to humanize your brand and
Mm-hmm.
the person talking. Story shows us who you are
Yeah.
without you having to tell us. It is the quickest way when you don't have time to go get out on the golf course and build a relationship
Mm-hmm.
because it puts a human face. And what I love about it is when you're doing it for that purpose, for allowing people to get to know you, just as I did in the opening here, it doesn't matter what story you tell, just as long as we don't want you rambling all over, but as long as you take us into your life and
Right.
give us a chance to get to know you. We aren't grading on whether you picked the right information. And it's beautiful when you create a human connection. And I think that's why everybody's talking about authenticity these days. It is the
Exactly.
human connection. Story is the bridge that connects human being to human being. And that's powerful in the world
Yeah.
of influence.
I couldn't agree more. And it will differentiate you because nobody can duplicate your story. It's unique, right?
Right.
It's
I was
unique, your
just thinking,
experience.
you're
Mhm.
exactly right, Marissa. I was just thinking of that to myself the other day. I was like, oh, well, what do I need to say? And somebody else has got my topic, or, there's so much competition. And I went, stop. Nobody can tell your story.
Mhm.
That is the piece of your presentation, of your brand, of your marketing that no one can go copy and reproduce. It's
Mhm.
yours. So stick to the story. That's a beautiful point.
So, how would, if somebody said, okay, I want to incorporate stories, where do I begin? Do I begin about the brand story or the product story, or some of the stories don't seem that compelling? Where do I even start if I've never done storytelling?
Okay, I've got a good answer for you, and you're going to have to remind me in case I forget your question because I want to back it up. The first thing people need to understand is what is a story? And maybe we'll go address that in a minute. Let me
Hmm.
answer the question
Okay.
you've asked is because if you don't understand it, any work you do after that is pointless if you're not
Okay.
really understanding the tool. But when people say, when I drop this boulder on them that they need to be using story, it's powerful, it's very overwhelming to them because they see all the places it can be used. And you need a strategy. You need
Hmm.
to come up with a strategy of where can you use story? Is it in your meeting? Is it in your newsletter? Is it on social media?
Hmm.
Is it in a presentation? What I tell people is let's just start with the first one that I think is the most important story every business should tell. even if you aren't in sales or marketing or you aren't the ambassador of that brand. It's a beautiful exercise to do, even if you never share it with anybody. And I call it the why story. And y'all are probably thinking, oh, Simon Sinek's why. No, I'm pretty sure mine it's a different angle on that. But I believe we all should have a story of why we do what we do and why it matters to us personally, to the brand or the company that we work for, and to the people that we serve. So when I'm helping people put together that story, we usually start with gathering that information. Well, what do you do? Why does it matter? Some people haven't thought through fully because they're in accounting. Right. They don't understand, they haven't put language around. Why do you do it? Why does it matter to you personally? Is it setting an example for your children? Is it because, why do you personally get this joy in your work? That's why I don't want everybody telling the same company story. I want you telling this story of your perspective. And then why does it matter to the brand? Because we at XYZ believe in honesty and in tech, whatever, the brand or the product and the people you serve. Why does it matter to them? How does it change their lives? Some people haven't really thought all the way through into that piece of it. Now, there's not a story there yet. Okay. A story is not a list of facts, but I want you to have that information, because then I would say, take me to a time when you helped one of these customers, a moment that reminds you of why you chose to do this work and chose this company, and tell me. It can also be called a customer testimonial story in my eyes, because what you're really doing is you're telling the story of one of your customers, but you're weaving yourself and why this work matters to you and the joy you got being part of that, and why you love working for this company or this brand or started this business. And you're weaving 3 stories together: yours, its, and theirs.
Beautiful.
And and I think if everybody had, even if you're a nurse, and you'll never share that with anybody, but you can share it, in the context of a company meeting or whatever. It's just a beautiful thing to have.
Yeah,
So
I love
that's
that.
the story I'd say to start
Right.
with. And if you have that, you can put it in a sales presentation. You can put it on social media. You can put it in a demo. You can use it at the beginning of a speech or a presentation. You can use it. You might have to tweak it a little bit, but you can use it in many different ways to create that human connection that opens the door for them to want to hear more. It humanizes you, humanizes your brand, and humanizes your customer, because they will recognize themselves. If you tell the story correctly, they'll see themselves in your story as well.
Yeah, that's great for coaches too, because I serve a lot of coaches, and there's a reason why they're doing what they're doing. And if you ask enough questions, you find out what that motivating reason was. And it's usually a beautiful story there. And it really, I think it empowers them too, to put all these pieces together and realize why they're so passionate about it. Because sometimes they just say, I'm passionate about this. Well, why are you passionate about it? So I love that. The why story, first story. Are there any other?
And Marissa, when you are bringing out a client you helped in that story, you now have the amazing ability to drop nuggets into that story. My client was struggling with this. She felt that she couldn't do this. Yeah. She was afraid this might happen. And I loved being able to show her that boom, boom, boom. What a subtle way to show people how you work without bragging about it. It's also a huge benefit for coaches, is because you could say, that's why I created the XYZ system. She realized it's not as hard as she thought it was going to be. And you can kind of mirror the client you're trying to attract and sell to.
I love that, because a lot of them struggle with self-promotion. And so this is a great way to just tell a story, how you're helping someone, like a case study, and weave that in. I love it. That's great advice. So we have the why story. Is there another story as we're breaking down what story is and how we can weave it in our marketing?
Well, it's funny because I was just making a list. I'm even opening it up on my computer of the different types of stories in sales. And I'm not going to go into each one, but you'll understand when I start to talk about it. Your trust me story.
Mm.
Maybe the kind of story, it's kind of based on what you want to accomplish. The why you need an expert story,
Mm-hmm.
the I understand where you're coming from story,
Mm-hmm.
the explainer story, how something works and why it matters, the before and after story. You could have a before and after. Let me show you the before and after with the people I worked with. The sense of urgency story. Here's why
Mm-hmm.
you should act now. So the here's what's wrong story that you may use to illustrate a problem with, that your team is having. Again, I use story in a lot of broad applications, but that's how you can kind of start to look at the different purposes that a story serves. I don't
Mm-hmm.
teach story to people in theater. I mean, I could. I don't teach how to write a good story on a stage. I teach how to tell a strategic story that persuades them to think, feel, or do something as a result. So I'm always looking at a story first before I even write it as what's its intent? What is the
Yes.
purpose? What is the lesson of this story? So many people come to me with stories, and when I say, what's the point? They can't answer that because they
Mm-hmm.
haven't fleshed it out fully. So before you even write a story, understand what you're using it for. What do you want them to think, feel, or do as a result of hearing it? And what's the point of this story that you're telling me? Because if you can clarify the reason I'm telling you this story is, or the things I learned from that experience is that you can't always do things on your own. You'll save a lot more time and money by hiring an expert in the long run, or whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. That's really key what you said. And you kind of went really fast on that, but I want to circle back to that, the intent and the strategy of the story. You really had me on that because strategy is so important. What do you want them to think? What do you want them to feel? What do you want them to believe? What do you want them to do? And really try to figure that out so you're strategic in your story. And then what you're sharing, really a lot of this, even in copy, which can be so dry. So you see one, you see them all because they use the same verbiage. Story can transform it where it doesn't even look like a sales page. It's just
No, it
story.
looks like the letter you sent. You know how
Yes.
many times I've started reading
Yes.
the email and realized, oh my God, they're trying to sell me because it was so natural. Like, hey, Kelly, you got to hear what happened to me the other day. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? What happened to you the other day? I want to tag off of what you also said by saying story simply illustrates the point you want to make. You all have a point you want to make, a lesson, a talking point, advice you want to give. Story is just going, when you were like, where do we even begin? Story is just, where do we see this illustrated in real life? Let's put a
Mhm.
human face on this.
Yeah. Very good. Love it. So, on the flip side, what are some mistakes that you see people make when they're telling stories?
They just tell it and then ramble and
Mm.
hope they get to the end of it. Stories are strategic. It is a tool. You need to spend as much time on it as you do your web copy or anything else. It lacks structure.
Hmm.
The first mistake I see is that people don't really understand why they're telling me. So we're all going, what was the point of that? Why'd you just tell me that? They didn't understand it, or maybe they did, they just didn't verbalize it. So that having a point is a pretty big one. The other thing is they just start into this story that just keeps going. And we needed to know at the front end where they were going with that. So a little context at the opening of your story. There are three things I learned as a leader. The first one I learned when I was 16, and you go into that story. Another mistake is they just don't have the structure. A
Hmm.
story isn't a list of facts. It is about something that happened. It sounds
Hmm.
basic, but you wouldn't believe how many stories I see where I go, what? Nothing what happened? There's a
Hmm.
before and an after. Before this happened, here was whatever my life looked like. Then this happened. And then we fixed it in this way. It was resolved. And so
Hmm.
here's my new normal. I'm making it very basic. It needs that. I hear so many stories and I went, wait a minute, you left at your car crash. That's like turning it off in the middle of a Lifetime movie. I wanted to hear the rest. We want the full arc of
Yeah.
what journey this you or whatever character went through.
Yeah.
Another key piece to that is emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just tell me what happened. Tell me how it made that character feel. And the reason how it felt before, life is great, how it felt to all of a sudden it comes crashing down, or this problem enters, or maybe it's a desire. It's not always pain avoidance, or, it could be a desire you want, and how it made you feel to have it. I was frustrated. I was lonely. I didn't know how I was going to, whatever. And then it's resolved. Oh, I realized, boom, I saw that I needed this. Boom, I was so excited to finally have a solution, whatever, boom. And now look at me 2 years later. I call that a victory moment or happy ever after. Look at me now. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
living in this new normal. Now I'm using this product or this service, and life is good. And look at me now. We connect not based on plot in a story, because none of us are ever going to really truly be able to relate to what happened to you. We connect on emotion. So when
Mm-hmm.
we hear you naming those emotions at different points in your story, our brain goes searching through its database for when it had a similar type of emotion. That's where we're really connecting as human beings. And then I'm standing in my story at the same time as I'm standing in yours. And that is a really cool place. When I'm in my theater show and I'm talking about something awful that happened to me in college and how I let that guy write my story, and maybe you did too, and maybe you're carrying that pig around, and you've let somebody else, and I felt like a happy ever after wasn't for me. I felt not good enough. I felt like the girl who's never picked, whatever. My audience, Marissa,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not just in my story anymore. They're in theirs. And that's
Yeah.
where a minute ago when I said they get to test drive the truth. So when I get to victory, when I put the pig down, when I take the pen back and write my own story, when I embrace the weirdness in me and realize it's actually good, they feel that victory for themselves. Now, this is going to get deep. They
That's
may even
good.
feel a victory they've never felt in their own lives.
Yeah.
That is the power that story has in your work to do what just giving them the information could never have been able to do. It goes much
I
deeper
love
and
that.
persuasive. Isn't
That
that
is
cool?
powerful and that's deep
Yeah.
because they are reflecting on their own story. And that's why sometimes you see people nodding their head because they can relate, right? They
Yeah.
can relate to that. And I love what you said about setting it up too, because I know when I've heard you speak, I know exactly where we're headed. You don't have me guessing or figuring out where is this going or how long is this going to be or what's going to be the point. You set it up beautifully and I'm pulled in and I am thinking of my own scenarios. I'm hearing the story, but literally you feel like a little kid that just wants to sit on the floor there and just listen, right? Because you get
I mean,
pulled into the
they
story.
really, that stories are so powerful. They're compelling when done right.
Mm-hmm.
We've also heard when stories are all over the place or when they don't get to a point. I mean, not every story is created equal. It is important. And that's where I also see people making a mistake, especially in the speaking industry or in giving presentations, is they just think that they can tell it and it already sounds good, and that's not the case. You really need to work on it. And a lot of times when you're inside your own story, this weird thing happens. You know everything in the
Right.
story, but what you don't realize is you may not be telling me everything.
Right.
So I can be sitting there. I love sitting like in the director's chair and hearing your story and going, okay, but I don't understand how you got from there to there. And they're like, oh, I didn't tell you. No, you didn't tell me. Or, there's a lot we can't see standing inside our own story that it's often helpful to have somebody on the outside. Same as I'm sure with writing copy,
Mm-hmm.
because we can see a clarity. We're your audience and can see what our brain craves to hear more of or what we felt was left out. It's just when you're real close to it, it's hard to see it. And same thing for writing your own copy. I get so close to it, I don't have any kind of objectivity anymore writing about
It's true.
myself.
And we don't want those gaps. We don't want to make them work to understand what we're saying or leave them without closure. Even a movie, if I don't have closure at the end, I'm like, well, what happened to that character? And what happened
Oh,
here? And I
right.
don't feel satisfied at the end. I feel a little angry. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Even in movies and shows, and I mean, they're still taking us on a journey. They are also strategic. They have a purpose. They've got a message to give you. It's
Hmm.
it's the same. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. And we
What?
don't want to, I'm sure in your marketing, when you're talking to people, a lot of the language comes up. We don't want to confuse the buyer. That's
Mm-hmm.
one thing I'm really guilty of is we don't want to confuse the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, you could apply that to a story. We don't want to confuse your buyer. We want also you want the story to have a clear, tight path. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to know what happened to your second cousin's hairdresser's mama down the street. No, just say it happened to your cousin and call it a day because I need you to take the shortest path. I don't need all the details. I
Mm-hmm.
need the important ones and some for flavor.
How do you feel about dialogue? Is dialogue good to have or not? Or
Okay. I don't like dialogue. I don't like doing it. It's hard.
mm-hmm.
I don't like how it comes across sometimes because it looks like you're in a skit.
Mm-hmm.
And
And sometimes it's not delivered very well either.
no, or people will start a presentation with dialogue. Hark, I said to them across the room. I'm like, well, first of all, you wouldn't say hark in a conversation. And what are you doing? So where I try to get people in the right mindset for this to help you make those decisions about dialogue or not is stories, like speeches, like presentations, like perhaps even web copy, maybe even books these days, or nonfiction books. They're conversations we're having with somebody. So if you wouldn't talk that way in a conversation, then don't do it that way in your presentation or in your
Yeah.
story. I am constantly writing the way I talk and trying to talk. I clean it up and I make it more poetic and dramatic. But if you wouldn't tell somebody a story across the couch from you, holding a glass of wine, you would never turn and go into dialogue. You just wouldn't do that. However, when you're telling a story to your friends, you're like, oh, and then my mama called and she's like, girl, you have got to go see what's on sale at Walmart. Okay. See, I'm in dialogue there. It's very natural
Yeah.
because I'm trying to do this when I practice my stories and my speeches and presentations or whatever. I practice like I'm telling somebody at my kitchen table, and
That's
that's
good.
how I try to gauge myself. Um, yeah, and
Yeah,
so
that's good. Would it be something that you would naturally do if you're talking to somebody face to face? That's a good kind of rule of thumb too. So in marketing specifically, with all of the buzz, I mean, we're in a new normal now with AI, and everybody believes that AI is the panacea for all marketing. Do you see the future of storytelling going to be even dwindle even more, or because so many people rely on AI to produce at least marketing content
and
online?
I do too. AI is a wonderful tool for me to go, hey, I wrote this LinkedIn description. Do you like it? And AI writes it much better. And I'm like, oh, I like that one much better. And I've got no problem using it in that regard and using it for research and using it to help me find and craft and say ideas in a different way. I like that
Hmm.
because sometimes I'm so in my head about describing something that I might not be describing it in a way you're going to understand about story, and chat words it differently. Of course, the rewriting tool is nothing new. Those were, you could plug in articles years ago and get them rewritten. Now, that being said, I asked AI to write a story for me because I started to wonder, was I going to be replaced by AI? And I asked it to write a story, and I have done it several times since. And I don't like the story it writes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me. It's not conversational. It sounds robotic. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm good here. It cannot write stories for me. It can't write poetry. It can't, there is still something about it that doesn't have you, if you've ever gotten, I tried to get AI. They've got these videos now where AI, you can plug in the script and get an AI character to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't feel, there was something about it that didn't feel real. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're even scratching the surface in what AI can do. Like any tool, I'm
Yeah.
going to want it to help me. How is this going to help me
Right.
further my business? And I'm seeing many ways that it can. And yes, it is going to replace. I no longer need somebody to splice videos for me and add
Mm-hmm.
captions because AI can do it. And now I can do it for free. I didn't hire a graphic illustrator recently for a children's book because now I got Night Cafe I could do those myself for free. So it's
Mhm.
going to radically change what we do. And I don't think we even realize to what degree.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
but that's kind of discouraging. We certainly don't want to leave on that note.
But on the upside, if somebody hasn't incorporated stories in
Yeah,
their marketing, I would think that they could begin even in email campaigns if they're sending out emails, or even in an opening of a masterclass. There's webinars that people do, and definitely on any type of sales pages or opt-in pages for free
sure.
resources. I would think on an about page, maybe on their website. Are those some places that they can
For
use story
sure.
or version?
Anytime you're going to talk to your buyer or potential buyer is an opportunity for you to engage them with a story.
Mhm.
Yes, in your newsletter is a great idea. I'm seeing people do that all the time, and it's more. It catches my attention more than
Mhm.
those traditional looking salesy or newslettery looking things. I like it in a demo video about your product on your website. Hey, you're putting a human face on your brand in social media. I mean, it's the stories, the funny stories. If you have a product, well, it doesn't matter, whatever you're selling or marketing. Okay. If you've got somebody who uses it, you've got a story.
Mhm.
So, like I've talked to wedding planners recently. Go tell a story every time you leave one of your weddings. Now, don't tell the whole story about all the wedding. Get strategic. Maybe in this story, you really want to emphasize how much attention you pay to detail. So you're going to craft a story about uh, the bows on the chairs or whatever, and go put it on social media. I don't know why more people aren't doing, well, me included, but I don't know why more people aren't doing that on social media. Is, hey, we just did this. Look how fun it turned out.
Mhm.
Tell the story of the job you just did, but do it strategically. How it felt for you to be part of it, what joy you got, why you like working for this company because it allows, you plug yourself, plug your company, but it's just, and you can do that in just a minute or two. You can do it in a picture. OMG, look how cute the flowers were at this wedding. Give
Yeah.
us a call. You can tell a story with a picture.
Yeah.
Uh, and I am definitely, and I'm sure you notice, I'm a little slow to the social media party. When I write an article, nobody pays attention, or very few. Some do. When I post the wallpaper in a hallway being Pac-Man at a hotel and OMG, look at this. Or when a funny picture and say, somebody write a caption, people are engaging way, way more. And that's
Mhm.
all you're doing is you're taking them into your story or the story of your customers or the story you're taking them into the stories of your company. I think it's a beautiful thing. And that's what's so overwhelming, Marissa, is it can be used in so many places. That's why you kind of sit down and go, well, okay, where do
Yeah.
we use it first? Let's pick one thing, or you've
Right.
got one thing coming up where you have an opportunity to influence or talk to your people. Start it off with a little story.
Love it. Love it. So I can't believe all this time has gone by already. I could continue to ask you questions. If somebody is really intrigued about this, I'm going to have a few other questions. I'm going to ask you rapid fire questions, but how can they get in touch with you? What's a way that they can get in
Oh,
touch with you?
well, I'm everywhere. But the way I wish you would get in touch with me, because I can give you more attention,
Mm-hmm.
is you can find me on all the other channels, but I would love for your people to go to
Mm-hmm.
storyimpactnetwork.com. That's a
Okay.
free community. And if you ask me a question, if you talk to me, I will hear it. It is not the clutter of Facebook and LinkedIn and overwhelm. It's a community of people who love stories. And Marissa, if you go to that, you're in that community, Marissa. If you go to that community and you look over to the side, I want you to notice two things: resources, because there are a whole bunch of resources for you at your fingertips, no charge. And then I want you to look at Story Studio registrations, because I set up every month chats where, just like this, you can join me. Well, it's not an interview, and we give them different themes: wedding planners, stories and sales. Funny Bone is one coming up, is being funny in stories. And we just have a conversation and I talk to you. It's just a good way to continue the conversation in a very informal, low pressure kind of a way. So in your free gift, be sure to check that out too and join me on one of those. They're
That
no
sounds
charge.
wonderful. I'm going to have you repeat that at the end because you said something about humor. We didn't even touch on humor. Any comment about humor? Should we try to be funny, not funny? What?
Don't try to be funny if you're not trying to be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
And humor is something you have to work at.
It's hard.
Don't do it flippantly.
Yeah.
Especially when you're putting it in your marketing and you're representing your brand, you need to be very, very careful or fall more on really clean, cutesy. But I would say just focus on fun.
Yeah.
Focus on fun instead of trying to find a joke.
Mhm.
Because if they laugh or smile, you still sort of get that same warm connection you wanted.
Yeah. So let me ask you a quick question so people get to know you a little better. What is your favorite food?
Oh, that's hard. I love food. Steak.
Steak. Okay, awesome. What's
Well,
your
and it's
favorite?
front of mind because it's so expensive, so I don't buy it much anymore.
What is your favorite color?
Sage.
Oh, very
Well, I
nice.
must say black, but black is not technically a color. I wear black all the time, but I like sage. I do.
Now, I know you love Jeannie Robertson, and she probably has a lot of great quotes, but is there a book or a quote that that is your go-to that you love?
Well, no, but I wrote one this morning that I still believe in, so I'll just go with what's front of mine. If you can't look in the mirror and love who you see, neither will they.
Oh, beautiful. What a great way to end this interview. So give them again the resource, the opportunity to join your community. What is that URL again?
Sure. It's storyimpactnetwork.com.
Storyimpactnetwork.com, and it will be in the show notes. So those of you that want to jump on board and check it out, Kelly she has just shared a drop in the bucket. She has just got so much wisdom when it comes to storytelling. She's a pretty savvy lady, so you will definitely enjoy that community. Kelly, thank you so much for being on the show. Any last words for everyone before we say goodbye?
I just want to tell everybody listening not to be overwhelmed, because even doing it a little bit will have a massive difference. And I want to say this to people who think their story is not good enough or big enough. It's not about having the best story. It's about just having the right story. And your story matters to the one who needs to hear it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it so much. And thank you, everybody, for chiming in and listening. I know you got lots of value. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.